Closeness is sweet, but it's also a threat to those who learn to survive through separation. Esther Perel, have you ever loved someone you constantly had to measure your distance with? They care, but never quite get close. They ask for space, but never say when they'll return. They don't leave, but they don't fully stay either. As if you're in a relationship with someone who touches you with one hand and grips the doorknob with the other. This isn't indifference. This is a survival response from a nervous system that once learned. Getting too close is dangerous. If you found yourself slowly changing in the relationship, becoming quieter, more careful, even censoring your feelings so you don't scare them off, you might be loving someone with an avoidant attachment style. And here's the paradox. Avoidants can love deeply, but the more they love, the more they feel out of control, and so they pull away. In this video, you'll not only learn to recognize the subtle signs of love from an avoidant, but you'll also understand the nervous system behind it, the fear of engulfment, and the deep-rooted emotional history that keeps them on constant alert. If you've ever wondered, did they ever love me? Don't look away. Click subscribe and stay with me until the end of the video, because the answer won't just help you understand them, it will reconnect you with yourself and remind you that you deserve a love that is clear, grounded, and no longer a guessing game. Not all avoidants are heartless. In fact, many people with avoidant attachment styles are deeply emotional, sometimes deeper than even they can handle. But precisely because of that depth, they've had to survive by disengaging. Not because they don't want connection, but because connection once brought them deep pain. Imagine being a child who was shamed for crying, or left alone in the moments you most needed comfort. You would learn quickly, feelings make you weak, and weakness means getting hurt, losing control, or being abandoned. This trauma doesn't always come from overt abuse. Sometimes, it's simply the prolonged emotional absence of a caregiver, a mother too busy, a father emotionally distant, or an environment where taking care of yourself was the only way to survive. So the child grows up with an unspoken rule: closeness is dangerous. And they build an entire emotional defense system to make sure they never get too close to anyone again. But what happens when someone like that starts to fall in love with you? They won't come in like a storm. They won't sweep you off your feet with grand gestures. They love through quiet persistence. They don't text every day, but they remember your smallest details. They rarely say, "I love you," but they stock your favorite snack in the fridge. They don't call nightly, but they show up when it matters. And every time they retreat and return, that's a battle. One where they're trying to hold on to you while trying not to lose themselves. Here's what you need to understand. Avoidance doesn't mean absence of attachment. Avoidants often care very deeply, they just lack the tools to regulate their emotion. They fear losing you, but don't know how to express it. So instead of holding you tighter, they push you away. Not because they don't love you, but because love feels like losing control. Research by Dr. Mary Main, who developed the adult attachment interview, shows that avoidants tend to use deactivating strategies, unconsciously suppressing their need for love and comfort, just to feel safe. But suppression doesn't mean elimination. The need is still there, hidden, buried, but real. And you on the other side may feel confused. One moment you feel special, the next you feel pushed away. You begin to question yourself. Am I too much? Did I do something wrong? The truth is, no one is wrong here. You're just speaking different love languages. You love through closeness. They love through distance. You show up clearly. They show up quietly. They love with their eyes, their silence, their tiny gestures. They stay even after you say, "I need space." For them, every step closer is a war with themselves. They don't say, "I love you," easily, not because they don't mean it, but because admitting it feels like losing the protection they've clung to since they were 5. And that's what makes loving an avoidant both difficult and deeply moving. They love through fear. They stay even when they want to run. They come back, not knowing why, only that they can't not. That doesn't make their love wrong. It just makes it fragile and in need of being understood by a heart that is secure, boundaried, and compassionate. Because in the end, you can't heal them by chasing, but you can heal yourself by seeing them clearly. They're loving the only way they know how, not necessarily the way I need. And sometimes, the bravest thing isn't waiting for them to be ready, but stepping back so they can learn how to step forward if they truly want to. That's why, when you love an avoidant, The first thing to learn isn't how to make them act normally, but how to read the quiet language of love they've spent their whole lives using to protect their hearts. For them, love isn't spoken, it's shown. If you can look past the calm exterior, you'll see it clearly. They are loving you in their own way, in their own rhythm. Quietly, but genuinely, they stay. It may sound simple, but for avoidance, staying is an act of courage. They can leave at any time and they know it. Yet when they love, they return, even if it's subtle, a neutral text, a brief check-in, or just viewing your story every day. In their language, returning is confession. Research by Dr. Amir Levine, attached, found that avoidants often maintain safe, minimal contact, staying connected enough to feel belonging, but distant enough to avoid threat. It's not manipulation, it's survival. They share personal space. Private space is sacred for avoidance. When they invite you into it, it's trust. They might take you to a place they've never shared with anyone, or tell you childhood memories long buried. This is emotional intimacy in disguise. According to Dr. Stan Tatkin, allowing someone into your neural safe zone is the brain's way of labeling that person as emotionally safe. You're not just in their life, you're entering their inner world. They act instead of speak. Words can feel dangerous, too open, too risky. So they act. They fix things for you. They remember what you like. They buy that one thing you mentioned once in passing. It's their way of saying, I see you. Dr. John Gottman's studies show that small, consistent gestures are far more predictive of lasting love than big declarations and avoidance. Unknowingly, love exactly that way. They listen deeply. Avoidance may not respond emotionally, but they absorb everything. They remember things you forgot you said. They listen in silence, and weeks later, you find a small gesture that mirrors your words. They love through observation. Neuroscience research shows that avoidants activate the precuneus, the brain area, for emotional memory more through listening than through verbal exchange. They love by noticing. They become awkward when you get close. Their awkwardness isn't disinterest, it's overwhelm. Their nervous system enters alert mode when emotions rise too high. They need space not to disconnect, but to regulate. When they care deeply, they pull back not because they're gone, but because they're trying not to drown. If you allow that space, they come back quietly, but sincerely. They help you fix things. Their comfort language is problem solving. They might not cry with you, but they'll find a way to ease your burden, send an article, suggest solutions, help you think clearly. In Dr. Gary Chapman's 5 love languages, this is called acts of service, the love language of those who learn to love through doing, not saying. And most profoundly, they apologize. For avoidance, admitting fault is terrifying. When they say, I'm sorry for withdrawing, or I didn't mean to hurt you, it's more than an apology, it's emotional exposure. It's them confronting their deepest fear, being wrong, being rejected, being seen as weak. When they do that, they're not just loving you, they're learning how to love better. Loving an avoidant isn't easy, but if you can see through the silence, you'll find a song one of fear, courage, and longing. And if you can listen closely, you'll realize they're still loving you, quietly, but truly. Here, we begin to uncover a profound and painful truth about the love of avoidance. It's not just a series of odd behaviors, it's a quiet internal war between emotion and protection. If securely attached people enter love like stepping into a warm home with the door wide open, avoidants enter it as if walking across a minefield. Every step closer means facing fear. Fear of dependence, fear of judgment, fear of losing themselves, fear of losing control over their emotions. To them, love isn't ease, it's risk. It's pressure, it's a threat to their identity, and you might not see it on the surface. They appear calm, rational, composed, but deep down they're already loving you sooner than you think. Not from the moment they say, I love you, but from the moments they miss you but can't bring themselves to call. They worry when you're upset, unsure how to help. They fight the urge to run because part of them wants to stay. Their love is a war between two selves, the part that wants connection and the part that wants to be safe. And if they stay even quietly, even hesitantly, that is love. Raw, real, vulnerable. Inside, they're asking, can I open my heart without being consumed? Will this person see me and not try to fix me? Can I still be myself and love them too? These aren't excuses for emotional distance. They're the echoes of a childhood where trust once led to pain. They're the defenses of someone whose early experiences taught them, if someone sees the real you, they'll leave. So their love doesn't begin with public hand-holding. It begins with internal rebellion, the choice not to flee, even when they want to. The moment they label you as dangerous, but worth it. The moment they realize that maybe, just maybe, love doesn't have to mean losing themselves. It's a slow awakening, but a powerful one. A love born not from ease, but from courage through fear. Many people say avoidants don't know how to love. The truth is, they love deeply. They just don't know what to do with those feelings. They have no healthy model to follow. To them, love is a wave too big, not because they don't want to swim, but because they never learned how. And yet, for you, they stay in the water, still near the shore, still tense, still uncertain, but still they stay. And in that trembling presence lies a love that hasn't found its words yet. Now you've seen it behind their silence, withdrawal, and awkwardness is a well-built defense system born from a lifetime of unhealed wounds. They don't hurt you on purpose. They're simply surviving the only way they know how. So if you're still here, still patient, still feeling this love is worth holding onto, your love can't look like any love you've known before. It can't depend on constant reassurance or grand romantic gestures. It must be built with sensitivity, emotional maturity, and an ability to hold space without needing to control. And if you want that love not just to survive but thrive, you'll need to learn what society rarely teaches: how to love someone without trying to change them. First, don't force them to express what they're not ready for. Avoidants need to feel in control to feel safe. If you constantly push for clarity, emotional declarations, or labels, they'll feel cornered. They might say what you want to hear but later retreat or shut down completely. Even small pressures can feel like emotional invasions to them. Instead of forcing, "I love you," observe their presence, how they show up, how they return after pulling away. They're already saying it, just not in word. Second, learn to appreciate the small acts. Avoidants don't use words, they use actions. A favorite tea, a hand on your back, quiet companionship when you don't want to talk. These are not small. These are their love language. Dr. Gary Chapman notes that avoidants often express love through acts of service or quality time. They don't say, "I love you." They say, "Did you eat yet? Let me fix that for you." Third, adjust your expectations. Love doesn't look the same for everyone. We love the way we were shown, the way we were hurt, the way we healed or never learned to. So instead of saying, "If they love me, they must do ABC," ask, "If I truly love them, can I learn to speak their language?" Mature love doesn't demand symmetry, it requires understanding. Fourth, respect boundaries and personal space. For avoidance, personal space isn't about rejection, it's about regulation. They need time to process feelings, not to detach, but to stay afloat. If you give space without pulling your love away, without punishment, without threats, they'll begin to feel, "Maybe I can love this person without losing myself." According to Dr. Dan Siegel, safe connection means freedom to be yourself within the relationship. That's exactly what avoidants need: freedom inside connection. Fifth, be a safe place, not a test. Avoidants can't open up in environments full of pressure, judgment, or comparison. If they feel they have to perform to be loved, they'll never trust fully. But if you can be steady, present, patient, non-demanding, their nervous system will slowly learn. You are not a threat. You are a safe space to rest. Then, and only then, love becomes more than survival. It becomes connection. And remember the most important truth: loving an avoidant doesn't mean accepting an unhealthy relationship. Mature love requires two things: empathy and boundaries. You can love deeply, be patient with their pace, and still ask for basic clarity so you don't lose yourself. Maturity in love isn't self-sacrifice. It's conscious partnership with them and with yourself. When you can do that, loving an avoidant stops being a chase and becomes a space where two people can relearn love, for the first time, the healthy way. So, if you're loving someone with an avoidant attachment style, remember, you're not just entering a relationship, you're entering a completely different emotional language. One that isn't loud, not linear, and has no user manual. It's like reading a book with no illustrations, no chapter titles, no bolded keywords. A book written in emotional Morse code where commas are silences and periods are quiet actions. And if you're patient enough to sit with that rhythm, to feel its subtle pacing instead of rushing to the final chapter, you'll discover something rare. A love that doesn't perform, but is deeply, quietly real. Because their love doesn't begin with grand declarations. It begins with a trembling heart and a hand that doesn't know how to hold. It doesn't come under bright lights or romantic music. It slips in quietly through everyday gestures. A short text, "Did you get home?" A silent presence beside you when you're low. Fixing the light bulb you forgot about without being asked. You might see these as minor, but for them, each act is a brave step. A moment where they tiptoe outside their emotional fortress and risk being known. So if you love someone like this, love them in a way that allows them to stay themselves. Not by dragging them out of their shell, but by building a space where they choose to come out. A love that doesn't require perfection, but invites honesty. A connection that doesn't rush, but gives room for gentle unfolding. And if one day they whisper, "I'm scared, but I'm still here," know that it isn't just a sentence. It's a milestone, a breakthrough in their healing journey. It means they stayed, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. So if you're the one beside someone like this, ask yourself, am I trying to make them love me the way I expect? Or am I truly seeing the way they express love? Because love doesn't always need to be spoken to be understood. Sometimes it's in a quiet gaze, a return after distance, a neutral message sent at just the right time. And trust this, avoidant don't love loudly. They love through presence, through remembering the tiniest details, through awkward apologies that cost them a lot to say, through their stillness that stays despite every instinct to run. If you're wondering, do they love me? Forget the movie scenes. Ask yourself, asterisk, are they still here? Asterisk, do they still care even silently? Asterisk, do they come back even after pulling away? If the answer is yes, you may be standing in front of one of the rarest forms of love. The love of someone who's spent a lifetime learning not to need anyone, but is now learning to love for the first time because of you. Maybe you didn't choose to love an avoidant. Maybe your heart didn't plan to get attached to someone who is both near and distant, who longs to come close but is always ready to leave. And yet, you stayed. Not because you lack self-respect, but because deep down, you felt something real, an imperfect, quiet, but sincere kind of love. Now you understand, loving an avoidant is never simple. It's not just a relationship, it's an intersection between two nervous systems. One learning to open, one learning to wait. One wired for survival, one wired for connection. The question is, can you love them without losing yourself? Because even if you've learned to read their language, to decode the emotional Morse code, to sense the love behind silence, you still must remember, you're human too. You also need to be loved clearly, to feel safe, to be seen fully and without conditions. So the real ending isn't about whether they come back, whether they say the words, or whether they change. The real ending is, will you choose you? Will you choose health, stability, and a love where you don't have to shrink to fit? If your avoidant partner is willing to walk that journey with you even slowly, even awkwardly, then you're building something rare and beautiful. But if not, remember, real love never asks you to abandon yourself just to hold on to it. You don't need to scream to be loved. You just need to stand still fully, wholly. And real love will not see that as a threat. It will see it as an invitation.